chaos. For some, it is a way of life. For others, it is merely yet another canvas for creative expertise. In the world, there exist two who band together, motivated only by their hatred of secrets and greed. These two have left their mark on the world, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. But who would win if these two dastardly menaces were to be pitted against each other in a showdown? Stay tuned until the end to find out. After the resolution of the Omnic crisis, Australian government officials granted the local Omnium the surrounding area to settle in, hoping to maintain a long-standing peace with their past aggressors. The area that was to be populated by the Omnium was already the home of many outback residents, including Mako Rutledge, who lived among the survivalists and solar farmers, people who just wanted to be left in peace. Enraged over the loss of their home, Mako and many others formed an active rebellion called the Australian Liberation Front. As events escalated beyond the point of control, the Liberation Front soon caused the destruction of the Omnium's fusion core, leading to an explosion that destroyed the region. Mako powerlessly witnessed his own peaceful home transform into an irradiated wasteland, and with the change in the landscape, so too was there a change in Mako. Donning a new gas mask to survive the harsh conditions brought on by the recent havoc, with his chopper in tow, he took to the highways of the outback, as any shred of humanity slowly withered away, and with it, the man known as Mako had truly perished, giving rise to a merciless butcher. Jameson Voorhees could be called many things, from a notorious demolitionist to a straight-up psycho. But the origins of the mercenary's freakish nature can be traced back to the destruction of the Omnium's fusion core, which altered the near uninhabitable land that Voorhees had no other option but to grow up in. Surviving the harsh irradiated wasteland coated in fragments of the trash facility, and adopting the title Junker, Jameson became part of a lawless society, tainted by the ever-present radiation that plagued the area, instilling the right concentration of madness to make him a suitable candidate for dealing with deadly explosives, a trait that would serve him well as Voorhees, or rather Junkrat, found as he gained fame from his discovery of an unimaginably valuable treasure hidden away in the depths of the Omnium. This secret made Junkrat a wanted man, pursued by bounty hunters and criminal gangs alike. Soon enough, his path crossed with Mako, who the Junker had eventually struck a bargain with. In return for the Goliath's heavy protection, Mako, or rather Roadhog, was to receive a sizable cut of whatever treasure Junkrat had claimed for himself. With his new hired muscle, Junkrat left the treacherous outback, leaving death and mayhem in his wake wherever he traveled in the world. My name's Prime, and today we'll be analyzing these two murder machines so that we can truly know who would win in a showdown. If you enjoyed, I only ask that you leave a like and share the video as much as possible. And with that, let's get started. Jameson Voorhees, or Junkrat, is a 25-year-old man who uses a metallic peg leg and prosthetic arm. We do not know what became of his former limbs, nor how he lost them. However, his movement has not been too heavily impaired by this predicament. And other than that, he's a perfectly healthy human being, as far as we know. Roadhog, however, is a round, 48-year-old man, who, let's face it, is out of shape, to say the least. In-game, most of his animations and movements are akin to a lumbering giant, and he himself is not the type to avoid attacks, simply endure them. He has the highest pure HP pool in the game, and for a man of his size moves fairly quickly. Also, he shows off his strength whilst controlling the recoil of his whole hog, and can pull all of the heroes in Overwatch from any distance, regardless of their weight, including Reinhardt and D.Va, two of the heaviest heroes in-game, and he can reel them in just as quickly as he could a Tracer. All things considered, it would be a crime not to give Roadhog the physical edge. In battle, Roadhog uses a scrap gun, which fires close quarters rounds of shrapnel at his target locations with a wide spread. It takes the behemoth 1.5 seconds to reload his puppy, which he can fire 4 times before needing to reload. Alternatively, the scrap gun can fire a cluster of scrap, which, after 9 or so meters, will explode, firing a cone of scrap at anything in its wake. A direct hit from either of these cone-style shots will deal enough damage to put down most of the heroes in Overwatch, in just one shot. Usually this attack is followed up by a strike with the chain hook, which Roadhog can bash enemies with in close combat, but he can also throw it at a distance. Any fools caught within the confines of his hook will be pulled to the giant, and he can throw the chain up to 20 meters away from himself. With Whole Hog, Roadhog shoves a top loader onto his scrap gun, firing a brutal stream of scrap that loses potency at a distance. The intensity of this attack knocks enemies back and can pin his targets to walls and surfaces. Junkrat, on the other hand, wields a frag launcher, firing explosive death in an arc, dealing significant damage over time, and in 4 seconds he can deal enough damage to take down any of the tanks in the game, with the exception of D.Va. He also has a concussion mine, which he uses to propel himself into the air, bringing along any enemies caught in the blast with him. For unexplained reasons, Junkrat is immune to the damage dealt by this blast. Next up, we have the Steel Trap, which functions exactly as a bear trap would in the real world, but with the gore censored out, because age restrictions. After 3 seconds, the trap releases its target. Simple enough, let's continue. Last up, we have the Rip Tire, which is a bomb housed inside of a vehicle tire. Don't ask me why, but for some reason it can climb walls and surfaces. The bomb must really love the number 10, as after 10 seconds it will explode manually if it has not already been detonated, and will cover a blast radius of 10 meters. There is only one hero capable of withstanding this assault, and you guessed it, it's D.Va again. But, like all of the other times, this is purely because of her mech. All of Roadhog's weapons require their target to be within a certain distance, a distance which Junkrat's frag launcher and riptire can more than maintain. It would be very difficult for the Roadmaster to land a scratch on Junkrat without most likely succumbing to the strength of the explosives. Though it should be said that even should Junkrat enter Roadhog's kill distance, the Junker still would have more than enough tools to keep his body in one functioning piece. For this reason, I'm giving the edge for weapons to Junkrat. Roadhog appears to keep a cool head during combat and doesn't appear to hold grudges, nor does he seem to be particularly picky with his opponents. Unfortunately, the only combat scenario that we've seen Roadhog engaged in spotlighted the tactics and strategies employed by Junkrat far more than they did Roadhog. Now, it should be said that Roadhog reminded Jameson of their true reason in fighting the bots originally, as well as pointing out the minor detail that the entire ordeal was a trap set by the very businessman who hired them. This definitely says something about Roadhog's tactical awareness of situations. Junkrat is brash and reckless in battle, usually wanting to see the sweet flair of an explosion. We can see that in Going Legit, Junkrat, whilst carrying out his assignment, forgets about the hostages, gleefully believes in the two-faced facade put on by the suit, and of course is blinded by his hatred of Omnics to such a degree that he couldn't distinguish simple drones from Omnics. Though, to be fair, it was a fairly dark building that they were in, and it would have been hard to distinguish this anyway. Funnily enough though, the recklessness is actually a double-edged sword. Whilst yes, it can be a detriment to his combat abilities, it also allows Junkrat to be fairly unpredictable in combat, setting off an explosion in close proximity to himself to the point where it could potentially harm or even kill him, just for the heck of it, or maybe he was that desperate in the first place. This one is difficult to call, as both of these mercenaries are fairly familiar with each other's combat styles and approaches, and would prepare accordingly. Junkrat's emotions would definitely have a role to play during this fight, causing a potentially costing mistake or an unforeseeable risky and or explosive play. Whilst Junkrat may have the element of surprise, in a sense, Roadhog is far more psychopathic than his partner in crime, and would likely not make any mistakes during the battle as a result of their emotions. Despite this, it is fairly unclear as to whether Roadhog would be able to react fast enough to Junkrat's potential risky play, as it were, though this is quite difficult to call as well due to the unfortunate fact that we don't know whether Roadhog protects Junkrat as well as he does because he's really interested in the treasure that Junkrat intends to share with him, or they have a genuine bond, and so no advantage will be given for tactics. Junkrat's physical impairments and replaced limbs are questionable, but ultimately offer him less mobility than Roadhog would possess. Even despite Roadhog's size and weight, he is shown to be able to keep up with the likes of Junkrat with no issue. Also, Roadhog is far stronger than Junkrat, which is part of the reason why he was hired by the Demolitionist, as he needed someone who was intimidating to ward off hungry pursuers. And of course, the hired muscle had quite the reputation already. Though it should still be noted that Junkrat is more than capable of using his assortment of bombs and explosives to give him an added boost to his mobility whenever he should really find himself needing it. Junkrat's weapons provide him with better and more varied options to deal with Roadhog during their bout at all ranges of combat. Though under the right conditions, Roadhog could end the fight in an instant with his arsenal. As for tactics, Junkrat is careless and unpredictable. Roadhog is quiet yet brutal. The two naturally have the equal advantage of knowing each other's styles of fighting, but ultimately, because Junkrat is something of a wild card and Roadhog hasn't shown us too much about the way in which he approaches combat, without the presence of Junkrat, it is unclear who the edge should really go to. So why don't we just continue to the showdown? Littered with the remains of an old conflict, the Outback appears to be a trash heap, a rusted city of aged metal structures and rusted architecture. Roadhog opened his scrap gun, loading it with a ball of scrap, before opening fire on his former ally, who scampered for cover, Roadhog in pursuit, wanting to finish this business as soon as possible. Skeptical, the giant peered over the location which Junkrat fled to. As he surveyed the lifeless area, he chuckled. He then blasted the steel trap that was planted meters away from his foot. Suddenly, Junkrat opened fire upon Roadhog from above, which caught the giant off guard. Rolling away, he felt the heat from the blast slowly begin to incinerate the flesh on his back. Annoyed, the former bodyguard flung his chain into the air, which made contact with Junkrat's artificial limb, causing him to lose his footing and hurtle towards the ground. In an effort to save himself, the scavenger used a concussion mine to dash himself away from Roadhog's danger area. Though safe for the time being, Junkrat had been temporarily immobilized. He sat up, readying his riptire, heavily detaching his ace in the hole from his back. With a sinister smile and his classic laugh, the tire was activated, and Roadhog, who had just entered the building, knew exactly what was coming. Without a second thought, Roadhog dashed out of the building, steadily positioning his scrap gun. As the riptire roared closer, the Hulk fired a cluster of scrap towards the Wheel of Death, which then exploded, pelleting the wheel with dense shards of metal. This had destroyed the wheel, displeasing Junkrat, who had begun to crawl to his feet as he heard a faint chugging sound. The Demolitionist peered through the window of the building which he was currently occupying, as he witnessed whole hog. Miniature clusters of scrap pierced through the aging structure. In a fit of desperation, Junkrat leaped out of the complex, landing on his newer limb, but Roadhog's assault had just begun, and it damaged the building to the point of structural failure, causing the entire thing to come crashing down. Slowly, the giant drudged closer towards the debris, until he discovered the barely conscious body of his former partner in crime. Roadhog turned around, throwing the anarchist's body onto the ground, but not before retching out of his hand a detonator. "You always wanted to go out with a bang," said Roadhog as he pushed the detonation button. What remained of Junkrat were charred, indistinguishably disfigured limbs, and his sinister smile. During this battle, it wasn't that Junkrat didn't have a chance to defeat Roadhog, but more that ultimately, when it comes down to it, Junkrat is a man of simple pleasures. In the Going Legit comic, Roadhog acts as a guardian over Junkrat, watching his every move, spelling out the treachery of the man who betrayed them. No one would be more familiar with Junkrat than Roadhog, and any and all of his tricks would be less, if not ineffective, against the titan of a man. Yes, this is also true for Junkrat, but thanks to the certain interactions with Junkrat, I get the sense that Roadhog isn't exactly on the same friendship level that Junkrat is with Roadhog. Roadhog doesn't appear to be entirely concerned with the well-being of his compatriot, and if in-game dialogue between the two is any indication, he is more invested in the treasure than Junkrat as a character. In addition to this, he's noticeably disturbed by Junkrat's nature, if his responses to some of their in-game interactions are any indication. To me, Roadhog only seems to be doing what he is doing that suits his best interest with Junkrat, does not seem to be doing anything else other than that. The Outback setting houses more than enough ammunition for Roadhog to employ, as he literally fires scrap at his enemies, something that during this fight he was far from short on. Not that Junkrat would not be aware of this, and the Outback is a location that the two characters are fairly familiar with, so there wouldn't be much of a disadvantage for either character in that respect. Therefore, the winner is Roadhog, so don't call him fat. Thank you for making it this far into the video, guys. Be sure to type in the comment section, say bacon, and if you'd like to see a specific matchup between two Overwatch characters of your choice, feel free to leave a request in the comment section below. If you're new here, subscribe here. As you can see, I do Showdown videos, and you can stay up to date with the latest one right here. Or if you're more interested in Smite, I do have videos under 5-minute guides for any god of your choosing if you so choose to request one. Leave a like on this video if you'd like to see the next episode lightning quick, and of course, share the video as that helps me out a ton. Until the next video, have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye bye.